Hello and welcome back to Grandma Susie's Kitchen. I'm Grandma Susie. Today we're going to plant blueberries. When I was a little girl, I used to help my father in the backyard planting blueberries and fertilizing them. He had 100 blueberry bushes in our home in Alabama. Blueberries grew well in Alabama, but they also grow very well in New England, in Rhode Island and Maine and other places, Massachusetts, where they grow wild in the woods. They do really well on the clearings. If you pick wild blueberries, you'll find that most of the berries are produced where the plant gets full sunlight during the day. So I'm going to choose a place in the yard that gets full sunlight during the day. You can notice that about your yard by observing where the sun rises and sets, and just noticing during the day when is the yard getting full sun. So blueberries are very easy to grow in Rhode Island. They produce a lot of berries because, for one thing, the soil is acid and blueberries like acid soil. My dad used to use peat moss to improve the soil because it aerates the soil and provides that acid balance. It's an acid soil. But today I'm going to use a different kind of fertilizer. They also like to be mulched on top, so I've got some mulch. And it's good to add some long-acting fertilizer when you're planting it so that it will continue to feed the plant during the next few years while it's growing. So there are 3 plants already in my backyard, and I just want to add 3 more today. The garden centers just opened up yesterday in Rhode Island. They've been closed for COVID-19, which is a pandemic currently, so that we've been having to avoid going to the stores. The garden centers have been closed, but the governor opened them up for business again yesterday. So we went and bought some blueberry bushes, my son and me. Okay, let's go out to the backyard. I'll show you where I'm going to put them and how we're going to dig this, how big the hole has to be to dig, and how you enrich the soil and how you plant the bush and mulch it. Okay. At present, I have 3 blueberry bushes growing in my yard. They've been growing for a couple of years now and already have got some berries growing on them. The berries are still green, so when they turn dark blue, that's when they're ready to eat. When I first planted these, they were fairly tiny and kind of scrawny looking, and I didn't know if they would grow well, but as it turns out, because blueberries grow so well naturally in Rhode Island, they grew really well and they've gotten big. They've got a lot of berries on them. So the new blueberry bushes are right here. There's going to be a second row of blueberry bushes behind the first row. I'm leaving enough space between so that I can get the lawnmower through there both ways, like this way and the other way. It's easier if you can mow between. The apple tree is doing really well. The asparagus, I've let it go to seed so that it will be able to propagate itself. There's still a few asparagus spears coming up. But anyway, this looks like a good place to put the new plants, the new blueberry plants. So this raised bed soil is good for growing vegetables and fruits and flowers. It's going to be mixed in with the soil that's already there in the ground. And this is the mulch that's going to be put on top. Once you're done planting, you want to put mulch on top to keep the weeds down. The first thing you want to check is there instructions posted on the plant itself? This unfortunately gives complete growing instructions for how to grow this blueberry. How much light it needs. Full sun is the best if you want to produce a lot of fruit. And other tips for how to plant it. The first thing you want to do is dig a hole that's 2 times the width of the pot itself. So I'm taking just an ordinary garden shovel to dig the hole. So move this aside, dig the hole right here. I have some like black plastic mulch that's down, you know, that fabric. Also weeds. The weeds have an extensive root system, so it's kind of hard to dig through the weeds. You want to get rid of all the roots of the weeds too, so that they don't start crowding out your plant. About 2 feet, a hole that's 2 feet in diameter. This is the hardest part, is digging the hole. This is easy. The final step is to put mulch on top of the plant. The mulch will help to hold in the moisture and will keep the weeds down. I'm using a black shredded mulch. Use the shovel to just cut open the bag like that. Just add mulch all the way around the top of the plant. Since I have 3 plants, I'm going to spread this out amongst the 3 plants. I don't have to go and buy another bag. If I need to put mulch down later in the season, I can do that too, but I'll start with 1 bag. Okay, that's how you put the mulch down. Okay, I've dug the hole for the 2nd plant, and I'm going to show you putting it into the ground. A reminder, I took it out of the pot, and you need to loosen up the bottom a little bit. Try not to damage the baby roots at the bottom, but try to open it up at the bottom so that it can absorb the moisture from the ground and the rainfall. You don't want this to be like just a tight ball of roots all the way around. You want some holes in there where the water can get through. These fine roots are very fragile, so you don't want to damage them. Just give it some space. Take the shoulders off so the rain can penetrate the soil. And I'll put some garden soil into the bottom. Just situate that, make sure it's firmly seated in the soil. And then just fill it in with some soil. Another thing I meant to mention is that when you're mixing it with the garden soil that's in the garden already, just keep it in one pile so that you don't have to go searching for the soil. It's just, you can just shovel it straight in there like this. Makes it a lot easier. Just just mix it with some of the topsoil that's mixed with fertilizer. It gives your plants a little extra boost. These blueberries would probably grow in this soil even without any added fertilizer. But the instructions said to add some slow-acting fertilizer to help to nourish the plant throughout the growing season and for the next few years. So that's how. Okay, it's time to put the third plant into the ground. The 2-foot hole has been dug. You may wonder why I'm planting so close to the apple tree, but the fact is the sun goes across the sky from, east-south to sort of like southwest, and it never actually, the apple tree is just in the shade over there, but it's not in the shade over here at any time during the day. So I took this out of the bag, out of its container, break off some of the corners so the roots can breathe, break off the shoulders like this. Those can stop the rain from getting through. Don't want that to happen. Just kind of punch holes in it to do minimal damage to the root system, but just get some air in there. And then make sure it's firmly seated. Then I'm just going to take this bag and dump it now because Susi hasn't shoveled yet. Not much in. And then you can use the shovel to spread it around and mix it with the other dirt that you dug out of the hole. The plants grow better if they become familiar with the native soil quickly. And from the very start, if you've got some of the native soil in there mixed in. But it's good to have this topsoil also. Especially if your soil is sandy, you're going to need some good quality topsoil. My dad always used peat moss. Peat moss is very good for blueberries. Okay. To propagate the plant, you need to find a branch that's close to the ground and more or less horizontal to the ground. And you can use that for your new baby plant. This is how my dad did it. Okay, so he would find a plant that was growing horizontal. He would cut a notch or a slice, just a slice in the stem, but not cut it all the way through. Just so the bark is, so the pith is exposed a little bit. Then he would bury it under the ground. I'll put some extra soil here. Cover it with soil. Make sure the part you cut is buried under the ground. And you want the end to be sticking up out of the soil so it can still continue to get sunlight, like that. I'll probably put a rock there to hold it in place. So, this one has berries on it already. Bury it under the soil. And then just put a rock on top, sort of like that, to hold it in place. We'll come back next year, and if it's bigger, then we can slice it off at the parent stem and allow the roots to grow separately for the baby plant. So that's how propagation is done. The 3 new blueberry plants are all planted in the soil. There was some mulch left over, so I added those to the base of the older blueberry plants that were already there to help keep the weeds down. If you do your weeding early in the season, you can save yourself a lot of work weeding later on. And here's the baby plant. I'm hoping it will grow. Sometimes we would have to try a few times to get the roots to grow on where the stem was cut. And once the roots start to grow, then it becomes a separate plant. All you have to do is separate it from the parent plant and it will grow.